This episode is brought to you by The Honeymoon Playbook. The Honeymoon Playbook offers ideas for sex, romance, and play. This Amazon best-selling and award-winning book is written by our very own sex educator and relationship coach, Marie-Claire Tovette. Check it out on Amazon and go get your copy today. Honeymoon Playbook, light a romantic fire in your relationship. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Passion Perspective, a look at the world of everything of sex and relationships today. My name is Emily.
And I'm MC Tovette.
And our guest today is the wonderful Joan Price. Now, Joan Price calls herself an advocate for ageless sexuality. She's the author of 4 books about sex and aging, including the award-winning Naked at Our Age, Talking Out Loud About Senior Sex, and Sex After Grief, Navigating Your Sexuality After Losing Your Beloved. Joan's blog has been offering senior sex news, views, and sex toys reviews from a senior's perspective since 2005. Now, at age 77, Joan Price continues to talk out loud about senior sex, partnered or solo, in speeches, workshops, and webinars. She writes the Sex at Our Age column for www.seniorplanet.org and is the resident senior sexpert for the Senior Sex Hub at hotoctopus.com. Now, Joan is the co-creator of the film Jessica Drake's Guide to Wicked Sex, Senior Sex, which won a Sex AV Award in 2020. Mm-hmm. And you can find Joan and her books and her blog at joanprice.com. So a very big warm welcome to Joan Price. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Emily.
It's so great to have you on The Passion Perspective, Joan. We want to know, how did you start helping seniors with sex?
Well, I started by helping myself with sex. I know. At age 57, I fell in love with my great love, Robert Rice, who was 7 years older than I was. And we were having such great, exhilarating, sizzling sex that I couldn't believe that it was such a secret that sex after 50, 60 and beyond could be so fabulous. So being a writer and a reader, I went looking for the books that shared my experience, thinking, of course, they're out there, and they were not. The only books about older age sexuality were either very academic and not the least sexy, or they were dismaying. They were, everything goes dry and goes limp, and you might as well just give it up and do something else and settle in or go play bingo or spend time with your grandchildren. So I thought, oh my gosh, I said to Robert, where are the books about the kind of sex we're having at our age? And by this time, I was 61 and he was 68. And he said, you're the writer? Write your own. So that was the start. I thought I was going to write one senior sex book, and it would be called Better Than I Ever Expected, Straight Talk About Sex After 60. It was written to celebrate senior sex and how marvelous it could be, pointing out that it's not the same as younger age sex, but still really enriching and wonderful and hot.
And deep and connecting.
Yes.
Right? I can say that because I'm a senior.
Well, yes, you can.
Yes.
You can say that because you're a senior. Well, after that book came out, it got a lot of attention because it was so controversial. And people would come up to me and say, or they'd write to me and say, well, bully for you having such great sex, Joan, but I'm not. And here's why. And I need to know what I can do about it. And I thought, oh, I thought my job was done. It has just begun. And so I set about learning all I could and reaching the people, often through ASECT, who were experts in some aspect of sexuality, whether it was cancer and sexuality or ED and sexuality or vaginal pain or whatever the issue was, or even problems in relationships. Whatever the issue was, I would find experts who that was their day job. They were entrenched in that particular topic. And then Naked at Our Age was born.
There it is, right behind you.
Right behind me.
Yeah.
which has reader stories and expert commentary on those stories. And then I thought I was done. Should I really go on?
It sounds like you're having a lot of fun talking about sex, right? Like this is just what a dream job to
I
me, you
can't
know?
imagine anything more interesting. Now, understand, I spent 22 years as a high school English teacher. And while that was very fulfilling, it was often about what I wasn't allowed to talk about.
Mm,
You know, when you think
exactly.
about it, I'm teaching English. This is literature. This is writing. This is our world. Sexuality is certainly part of a teenager's world, where they're just trying to understand it in themselves or exploring relationships or sometimes histories of abuse in
Mm,
their family. I would learn about that too. And I had to tread such a careful toe tipping line with how I could talk to people,
mm,
um, respecting them and not getting me in trouble, not getting them in trouble. And and so when you say it seems like so much fun to be writing about sex all day and talking about it all day, yes, it is. I love my
yeah.
teenagers. I loved them very much. I miss them still. But it is an exhilarating job that I have right now, being able to talk out loud about sex and aging.
Yes,
It's
especially.
so interesting because I feel like what you just described, like not much has changed, it feels like, when it comes to the discussion, like the openness with which people and especially professionals and teachers feel able to talk about sex and sexuality. And I wonder, do you think for example, the number of seniors having sex has fluctuated much over the years, or is it more about just who's talking about it? We would love to get your
I have
thoughts on
no
that.
idea what the previous generation did. Um, no way to know because they didn't talk about it.
Hmm.
And they're gone now. Most of them are gone now and we'll never talk about it. We get clues maybe from some people, but I don't know. I growing up thought that my elders were sexless, as most people do. And I even expected that in my own life because that was what I'm not exactly taught, but I wasn't taught anything different.
So that was a modeling, right? That's how you
That's
perceive
right.
it. You didn't see that there was like
No,
intimacy, connection, or no winking, no grabbing of butts or anything like that, right? You did you? Did you see it
didn't
like that?
see it
You see that.
socially, didn't see it in the
Yeah.
media, didn't see it in anywhere. No.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would guess things have changed because the number of people who write to me with their problems still, and the people who say, for example, I watched your Sex Toys for Seniors webinar, and oh boy, now I know what I need to do to get my sex life back on track. Well,
Mm,
there wasn't that earlier.
mm,
If someone was having the issue, as many of us do, I don't get enough sensation from what I used to do. I can't bring myself over to orgasm with what I used to do. There was no one to say, so what do I do now?
mm.
There was no one to ask. There was no one to advise them, well, here are some things you can do. So part of it is being able to do this work that I call talking out loud about senior sex. Another is having the platform to be able to do it with the internet. I am able to reach people. I mean, it took a while. I've been doing this work for what, 15, 16 years now. And it took a long time before it was easy for me to get the word out to many people at a time. But now I can. So it is a different world that we're living in now. So many things have come together to make that easier.
For sure. And in terms of sort of the advice that you do have, so for seniors who are coming to you, who are writing to you, who are showing up at your workshops, for many of them, it may have been a while since they've been intimate, whether their partner, whether they're widowed, whether, they divorced and didn't remarry and they're nervous about getting back into dating, like all of these different
Oh,
scenarios that might show up. So what's sort of some of the core advice that you tend to give to give seniors who are looking to shake things up, not just sexuality wise, but also intimacy wise, and learning to be intimate with themselves and others again?
I don't know how to answer that quickly because um, because for every point you mentioned, almost every point you mentioned, I have a 90-minute webinar on.
Yes, and
I
don't
have
and
the dating one called How the Heck Do I Date at This Age? Then there are 7 steps to regaining your sexual pleasure and connection. So there's so much more than I can answer quickly. I would say if there are 2 bits of advice I can give that apply to almost everything. One is instead of trying to recapture the past, look at what is possible going forward. Look at what still works and how to make that work better. Instead of, oh, but I want to be able to have sex like I was in my 30s. That ain't going to happen. Then the other thing that is as important, maybe more important, is use your words. Learn to communicate about sex, which for my generation, and as you said, I'm 77, for my generation, we not only never learned to talk about sex and ask for what we wanted and needed, we were not even taught to see sexual pleasure as part of what we were entitled to. So there's so much for giving people not only permission, but agency in owning their sexual pleasure lifelong. Saying, okay, it's not going to be what happened when your hormones were making everything happen spontaneously. But listen, here's what you need to understand about responsive desire versus spontaneous desire. Here's what you need to understand about ways to pleasure yourself and reach orgasm, whether or not intercourse is comfortable for you or whether or not you have a partner. And here's what you can do to get that increased sensation that you need. And here's, I mean, so many things. So I know I'm taking a long time not to answer your question, but that's what I have to give.
oh, that's great. And the first question that popped into my head while you're talking about all that was, what advice would you give, let's say, to a senior woman? What advice would you give her to open the conversation with her partner, how to talk to them in a positive way so that they'll be willing to have sex with them again after not having sex for a long time?
Okay. After not having sex for a long time, do you, in this scenario you're giving me, was it one person's decision or did it just fall away?
It just kind of fell away.
Okay. All right. I'm haven't practiced this, so it's maybe a little bit rough.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, sweetheart. I love how close we are now, but I really miss the kind of intimacy that we shared when we had a vibrant sexual connection. I understand we've let it fall away. We've aged and our sex drive is not propelling us the way it was when our hormones were sparking our brains. But what do you say we look into ways that we can slowly recapture that sexual intimacy? Could we start just by cuddling and touching each other, no goals, no expectations, except to explore how we can give each other pleasure?
Wow, you gave me goosebumps.
Oh,
Yeah, especially when you said let's explore. And I love that because it's really about just playing. Why not? Why don't we play, right? The way we used to play, or even discover new plays.
we get so caught up in goals.
Yes. That's it.
I'm supposed to remember give you an orgasm when we haven't done that in 9 months. And besides, it barely worked that time. So take out the goals, no goals, no goals, just be in the moment. How does this feel right now? Do you like what I'm doing right now? What would you rather have me try?
I love it.
Ask
Yes,
open-ended questions,
for
not just a
sure.
yes or no, but ask for feedback.
Yes, and
And
positive
even
feedback, right? And don't criticize. Don't criticize the person, your partner for anything.
right,
Yeah.
don't blame, don't criticize, but still make the point. For example, Um, for example, I always used to love it when you touched me there, but right now I would love to explore, your favorite word, explore, what it would be like if you stroked me here. Can you do that a little softer? I love that.
Mm.
So you're giving positive feedback, but you're leading. You're not putting up with something you don't want to have happen, because there's so much, and especially as women, as you know, we defer to our partners. We've been socialized to defer, and we haven't learned anything different. So we can, but it's never too late to learn that. And by owning our sexuality and communicating what we need and what brings us pleasure, we are giving our partners the gift of knowing how to please us. I mean, think of it. Our partners want to please us. So isn't that an honor to say, here's what I'd like?
I think it's so part of what makes this so interesting is so many of the things you're saying, I think are really applicable to everybody. I think everyone
Yeah.
could do with taking notes on all the things you just
Oh,
said, because it's not just seniors. Like, I think there's a lot of people even who have just been in long-term relationships who feel the same way. Like, you get maybe, things just they do sometimes just fall away. So I think that's really incredible advice for everybody, I think, to keep in mind. And I wonder too, in your work with seniors, though, the barriers that or the challenges that seniors in particular come up against, sort of telling us a little bit about what you see in that regard.
the barriers, can you pin that down a little more? Because there's so many.
Yeah, so let's even just starting with, for example, the barriers to sex for seniors, whether that's physical barriers,
Mhm.
some of the common challenges that seniors in particular run into.
Sure. Um, there are so many, and normally it's what our aging bodies do to our sexual responses. And does that mean we give up? No, it means we work around them, or we get creative about them. So, for example, um, let's say that we happen to have a heterosexual couple right now, and they're used to having sex via PIV, penis and vagina intercourse, and that is not possible now, either because her vagina is not so accommodating, or it doesn't bring her pleasure the way it used to, or he has undependable erections and can't count on maintaining an erection for enough for PIV, and then he panics about that, which of course makes it less likely that he will be able to maintain the erection, because anxiety causes the blood flow to recede, not not to flow to the genitals. Okay, so let's say that is one of those things is causing the inability to have the kind of sex that they used to have before. That's their barrier. And what I find happens with couples is they then give up. Well, if we can't do that, then that was sex, right? Anything else was foreplay. So what I like to do is try to re-educate them that having sex means doing anything that is sexually arousing and sexually hot and sexually fulfilling. It does not mean one single act out of the many, many things they can do to give each other orgasms. So I advise them to explore different ways that they can arouse each other and bring each other to orgasm. And one of the things that I've discovered is really helpful is, instead of thinking you're going to arrive at one sex act that's going to please both of you at the same time, separate that out. Have the pleasure of two lovemaking sessions, either the same day or different days, where first both of you concentrate on pleasuring you, and then both of you concentrate on pleasuring the partner. It is People usually react to, oh, wait, that's really weird. Isn't that just foreplay? No, no, take it to completion. That is not only very fulfilling, but it takes out all the anxiety of having to do what you used to do, or having to do what you can't count on working, or having to do something that causes you pain or anxiety. Instead, let me see how I can arouse you and bring you to orgasm, and then certainly to ask, what are you in the mood for today? What would you like me to try? Would you like to be blindfolded? Would you like me to use the sex toy on you? And by on you, I mean any gender. We're talking any gender of genitals.
Yeah. All the genitals would love that. Any genital.
Any genitals would love that. Would you like me to use my mouth? Would you like me to use my hand? And very likely the partner will say yes to all of the above. So, okay, then you laugh and you go ahead.
Yeah.
The other part of that is when you're trying something, especially if you're trying something new, if it doesn't work, it's okay to back out of it. Don't feel that you're committed to something that might not work for you, might not work for maybe they wait, excuse me, I thought I could do this, but I can't be on my knees for this long. Or oh my gosh, I need to change positions. Hold on, wait a minute.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
As my partner and I, when this happens, we just call out old people sex, and then we laugh. Okay, it's gonna take me a while to get in this other position, but hold on.
And do use those pillows, folks. Do use those pillows to make yourself more comfortable.
Yeah. So it's a sense of humor, I think, is really important, and the not being afraid to talk as you're going. Does this feel good? Well, I thought it would, but could we try something else now?
Could we try more lube?
Oh, well, lube, that's a necessity from the get-go.
Yes.
That needs to be just right there where you can reach it. Maybe several kinds of lube.
What's your favorite? What are your favorite lubes for seniors? Let's get going with that.
Let's get going with that. Okay, well, I have several favorites because there are different uses for different ones. For sex without sex toys, Uber Lube, a silicone lube, is absolutely fabulous. It's really slick. It doesn't dry. It's not goopy. It's just slippery. It's really wonderful. For flavored lube, for fellatio, I really love the Wicked Sensual line. They have such a variety. They have cinnamon bun. They have mango. A new one, blueberry muffin. Seriously? I know. I just look forward to it every time. So, and then and then I have several favorites for the vulva. And one, I like Sliquid very much. I like the Wicked Sensual line, the water-based, because I'm always using sex toys with or without a partner. And if the sex toys are made of silicone, you can't use a silicone lube, you need water-based. So the bedside table has maybe an array of 3 different ones. Then you can reach for what you want for the purpose you need it.
I just want to remind our listeners that we can't have any sugar going into any kind of like sugary, it changes the pH in your vulva, so in your vagina. So
that's
be sure not to put any sugary stuff inside.
Right. That's why I have the special ones for the vulva. Yeah.
Cinnamon buns without the sugar. It's everyone's dream.
Without the sugar. I love it. What are the advantages of having more sex as we get older, Joan? What is that? What can we look forward to? The
more sex we schedule, we need to schedule it into our week, the easier it is to become aroused because, well, for several reasons, but one reason is that our brain then gets habituated to
Mhm.
expecting that arousal. And then it's just easier to turn that brain on. Another reason is that as we age, it's harder to get the blood flowing to the genitals. And if we are having frequent sexual arousal, then we're also training that blood flow. And it is the more we do it, by more, I mean, and I'm not saying have sex 20 every other hour, but if we have sex once a week or twice a week, that is pretty much what has been described to me as the minimum for the health benefits of sex,
Mhm.
and of and it seems to work out for making sure that arousal and orgasm are easier that way.
For sure. And if people out there that are having issues with erectile challenges, I just want to point out that for men that have issues with that, they need to check in with their doctors to see if their heart is working well. Because if there's no blood flow going to the penis, you need to check to make sure that there's blood flow going to the heart. Right, Joan?
There are many reasons that a penis may be experiencing erectile difficulty, and one of them, as you said, is heart disease. It might be diabetes. It might be a neurological issue where it isn't the blood flow; it's the brain is not firing right for
Mhm.
receiving the input. There are a number of things that could be causing that, and I always recommend for either a penis or a clitoris that is not able physiologically to get aroused, that you need to get engorged, that you need to get a medical opinion on what's going on, run the tests, and don't be satisfied with, well, what do you expect, you're old.
For sure. There's probably a lot of seniors out there that don't know about the clitoris yet being a sexual organ, right? Do you want to talk
Well,
about your
I hope they know it's a
Mhm.
sexual
It,
organ
I
by
know, but a
now.
lot of them don't know that. I've
Well,
had
it
clients
isn't.
that come to me with
I,
that.
I don't think that it's that they don't know that, because the body will tell you, but they don't know how to incorporate it in sex when they think that sex is PIV oriented,
Exactly,
because the
exactly.
clitoris is off, usually not reached that way. Only 75 or so percent of vulva owners reach orgasm through intercourse alone. And this is something we're not taught. When I was growing up, a woman who didn't reach orgasm through intercourse was called frigid. It was her fault,
Mm.
Wow.
not normal, but it is normal. That is the normal,
hmm
And
Thank
I
God
think,
times have changed, right? Sorry,
yeah.
go
hopefully.
ahead. Go ahead, Emily.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, I feel like so much of it always comes back, as it does with talks about sexuality, to communication. And as you said earlier, Joan, I think for a lot of seniors, it just wasn't talked about. And when you're not taught how to talk about it, it can be very difficult. It can feel very difficult to do. But like you were saying earlier, it's a lot of it is just about learning and getting the tools to do that. And I'm wondering if you have any for seniors who may not feel comfortable talking about sex even with their partner, that partner of many years, if they have difficulty talking about that, do you have any kind of creative ideas to help folks open up to those kinds of conversations?
I have a webinar in planning that I've been planning for well over a year, and somehow it hasn't gotten to the top of my to-do list yet. And it's called Help Me Find the Words.
Hmm.
And it's all about that. It's all about how to open communication and how to, and I'm planning certain sexual scripts to give people, if this is the issue, here's some ways you might want to say it. I I've got to get that done. And if people are interested in that who are listening, if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll be the first to know when it actually is done. And the newsletter you can access from joanprice.com. Is anything new that's coming up. So if you give me a situation, I will help you find the words, Emily.
Like a specific role play
Yeah.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if we were talking, for example, about the clitoris, and you have a couple who, I don't know, let's say they're in their early 80s, and they've never really been comfortable talking about sex, and because of that, there's a heterosexual couple. The woman doesn't know how to ask for more attention to be paid to the clitoris.
Okay.
Through maybe she wants more oral stimulation.
In this scenario, has this woman masturbated with a vibrator yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Throw a little curveball in there.
Harder. That makes this much more difficult. Okay.
We're challenging you, Joan.
Well, I like that. I like being challenged. Realize I was not told what I would be asked ahead of time.
Yes,
that's right.
Choice,
We're putting her on the spot.
I even said, no, surprise me. Okay. My darling, I love our sexual connection, but I need a different kind of arousal in order to reach orgasm. I love what we do, but I need more attention paid to my clitoris. And I would like to show you exactly how I'd like you to touch me. May I take your hand and show you what would really feel good to me? Then after they've done that and it's felt good to her, or she proves her point, next time I wonder if you would use your mouth in the same way I'm showing you to use your hand. How's that one?
That sounds really
good. A+ to me. Sounds great.
Yeah. It's your legacy. You need to write that book. Make sure you get that out.
Oh yeah.
People need to have these conversations, and I think you're the right person to like give some examples of what that looks like. Of course, it's not that we're prescribing, right? It's whatever's natural that'll come from you. But these are really good ways to say it, so the person's not going to feel like they're put in a position where they're defending, right? We want them to be willing to do this, right? That's beautiful.
Right. Not defending, not apologizing, not accusing.
No shame, no shame.
No.
Yeah,
no shame, no
sure.
blame, just pleasure.
Yes. I'm so curious to learn from you what dating advice you'd have for seniors, because there's a lot of seniors, especially right now, that are really lonely. What advice do you have for them? Because you were in that situation where you were single for a while.
I was single for a very long time, and that's why I created first a workshop called How the Heck Do I Date at This Age, which went anywhere from 2 to 4 hours when I gave it live, depending on whether we were all going to incorporate working on people's online profiles for the dating apps, which made it the best it could be, because then they actually would come away with something they could use. I have distilled that into a 90-minute webinar, which is available from my website. It's fee-based, but a low fee. And I encourage people to look at that, joanprice.com. Then at the tabs at the top, you'll see speaking. And if you click that, a drop-down menu will give you webinars. And you can see the 5 webinars that I have available now, 5 or 6. And that's one of them. I'll give you one piece of advice now. I won't give away the whole webinar. We don't have time. Plus, I'm not going to, because it's a webinar. But one piece of advice I have for everyone is to make a list of what you're looking for in a potential partner. Not to just leave it to serendipity or chemistry. If you don't know what you're looking for, how do you know when you found it? And if you don't put out there what you're looking for, you're going to attract the people you don't want. And although there's numbers in that, how is that an advantage? So I have a system that I give in this webinar, which tells people a cool trick for dividing their list into 3 categories. And I'll use that as a teaser.
Good.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. And go ahead, Emily.
I was just gonna say, and if I'm gonna put you on the spot again, I'm sorry,
Oh,
but I was
good.
just
I love it. I love it.
I was just curious to know if you feel comfortable like sharing some of your own experience of when you did start dating again, sort of how you felt about it, and yeah, just your experience with that personally.
So you mean after my husband died?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that, I'm going to plug something else, is in Sex After Grief,
Mm.
Navigating Your Sexuality After Losing Your Beloved, which has had the pleasure of winning some awards. I love it.
Oh,
I know. I'm so proud of that book. It was very difficult to write. I had to go into a real dark space in order to be real with that book. I had to go back to those fresh times, those dark times, but I did, and I came out of it, and I'm very proud of this book. So personally, I must have tried everything coming out of my grief, getting through my grief, trying to date again. I tried a casual lover from my past. I tried online dating. I tried having sex with new people. I tried what finally worked. What worked for me was, and it's sort of a funny story, I think, that a lover I had had, I think it was 50, how many years ago? A couple of decades ago. It's more than a couple of decades ago, maybe 25 years ago. Um, he surfaced in OkCupid, one of the dating apps. And I saw his profile. I recognized his photo right away. I did, oh my goodness sakes. And he was in a consensually non-monogamous relationship, and he was looking for, and this relationship was not as sexual as he hoped he wanted it to be, and he was looking for someone who would be a friend and a sex partner, who would not have any wish to insert herself into the other relationship or be the main relationship, who would be very happy to be this secondary relationship, occasional encounters. And I thought, well, isn't that ideal? Because what I didn't want was someone who wanted a committed relationship. I knew I wasn't ready for that. I knew I would, I mean, I always have emotional connections with my lovers. I've never just taken a body and not had my brain go with it. My brain is my main sex organ. So yeah, my brain comes with me, and I'm a warm person. So my heart goes too. But I have had relationships that were committed, and I've had many wonderful casual relationships in my past that were never meant to be committed, but they were still joyful and warm, and I was appreciative of them. So what I saw here was, here's someone that I know already, that I trust, that if I say, hello, saw your photo, maybe you want the new relationship energy of someone you've never met. I would understand that. You can just tell me that. It's okay. But if what you're looking for is exactly what you described, someone who doesn't want you full time, who doesn't want any kind of commitment, just wants to meet with you once in a while, and if we like it, we'll have sex together. No expectation that that has to happen, but it could. We're both interested in it. What do you think? And he thought that was a fine idea, and that went on for about a year and a half.
That's great.
And
no,
it sort of,
no regrets, no regrets.
oh, no, no, no.
Yeah,
It was wonderful.
yeah.
It was really wonderful. It was
Mm.
exactly what I needed. And apparently it was just what he wanted also. And it was very friendly. We were close friends. And it's quite unusual to reunite with someone that you had known. I guess at that point it was, I don't know, I've lost track of time, but it was It was a relationship before the relationship before Robert. So it was somewhere in my, I know, I was grown up and I was past menopause, but it was still a while ago.
Yeah, I
And
have a, sorry, go ahead.
well, then the relationship played itself out. At a certain
Mm,
point, I felt um, this has been absolutely marvelous. It's been exactly what I wanted. I'm not tired of it, but I feel as though I'm so satisfied with it that now that I'm ready to open up to a new relationship, even though this is never, I never had any expectation of exclusivity, and I have been meeting people, I haven't felt the urge to be sexual with anyone else because I'm so satisfied with this that just, no, nothing is making me look. And he said, well, as a matter of fact, this person I recently met, because he had gotten out of the first relationship, we're thinking about being exclusive. So it was just perfect timing.
Mm,
Both situations were perfect timing.
serendipitous.
It really was. And
Hmm.
if you open yourself to things like that happening, they can. If I hadn't gone looking for something just like this and known what I wanted, I wouldn't have found it or known I'd found it. And the same thing for him. If he hadn't taken the risk and said, well, I may just be blowing up my relationship with this, but I've got to try.
hmm That's beautiful. I have a friend, Joan, that in her she did this in her 70s. She's still in her late 70s now. When somebody passes away, like a friend passes, when she loses her husband, she gives them the gift of a sex toy. And I was just
Yeah.
thinking, look, I was just looking at your book. How about sex after grief? That would be a really good gift to get after, maybe after a little bit of a while. But what stories do you have to tell us? Creative stories that you remember from people that have touched you, that you've taught or helped through the years? Do you have any fun stories or creative stories that you want to talk to us about?
My favorite one is a very short story. I had given a workshop, and in it, I explained the difference between spontaneous and responsive desire. Where, if the listeners don't know, spontaneous desire is pretty much hormone driven. You get excited about the whole idea of having sex, and then you are attracted to someone and you pull that person in and you say, hey, let's have sex, and it all works. So, well, that's a rough approximation of how that works. Responsive desire, on the other hand, is where you're not really aware of your sex drive. You're not feeling the desire in your normal life. You're not feeling very sexual, actually. But once you get started, if you're in a relationship that's safe and loving, or a relationship with yourself, if there's no partner, and you just get started physiologically, then the desire kicks in once the arousal starts. That's responsive desire, desire in response to physiological arousal. Well, I explained this in maybe a little longer explanation in this workshop, and the next day I got an email saying, you may have just saved my marriage.
Mm.
That for me was a sign that, yes, I'm doing the work I'm supposed to do. And it was, I'm seeing you two well up with tears at that one. And that's
Mm.
exactly what happened to me. Is I just thought, oh my God. And she could have not let me know. And I don't know how many other people have been helped that way. I hear from my listeners and my readers all the time. So I know it's helpful. I know it changes their lives to just to get that education, which is not so
Mhm.
easily available, or you don't know where to look for it. But if they are attending my workshops or picking up my books, and then there are plenty of other educators out there now doing this work. So I'm not saying you got to go to me. I'm the only one with the answers. I have many answers. I have 16 years of experience, not the only one who's doing this work now.
I know that you're really well respected as a member of ASEC, the American Association for Sexual Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. I think you're the go-to person out of, in all of our members to, ask any senior sex questions, we know that you're the one to go to for sure, Joan. We really, really
Oh, thank
appreciate your
you.
work.
There's been a movement started.
Yes, for sure.
And certainly Peggy Brick was one of the prime movers of it. She's deceased now. Jane Fleischman is marvelous. There are many others. Some are working with staff in nursing homes. They have their different ways of getting this information out.
Yes.
It's so, I mean, I know you're saying, it is good that there's this movement and there's more of this kind of content available. I think I'm particularly fascinated. I think all of your books are fascinating, but I am particularly fascinated by the sex after grief, because I think that's an angle that, like you said earlier, I'm not sure that it's ever really approached that way. And so I think your book is very unique. And I would love to hear more about sort of the main takeaways you hope that people get from that particular book and the process.
Sure. And thank you for that, because it is the only book out there like this. When I decided it was time to write it, I must have assembled 15 grief books to try to, plus those I already had, to see what they said about sex. It was either nothing, or it was maybe a warning paragraph. You shouldn't make any decisions while you're in grief. Well, I agree to some extent. You probably shouldn't marry. You shouldn't mingle your finances. You shouldn't lend your money to a friend. I made that mistake at one point. There are so many things that where you need to be careful of the decisions you're making when you're on what I call grief brain. But dating, having sex, that's not one of them.
Yay.
And one of my prime themes in the book is there is no one way to do sex and grief right. There are things you should try that feel like they might work for you. Find out if they do. Do things you can always back out of. Communicate again. And don't let anyone tell you that it's too soon, or it's been long enough. Why don't you don't need to hear any of that stuff. It's between you, how you feel, what you want, what you feel you're ready for. How do you know you're ready for sex with a new person, or dating a new person, or a new relationship? You don't know. You probably don't know. But if you think you might be, take baby steps. Go ahead and get on online dating. Make some first dates, coffee dates. If you're attracted to someone, take it to a next date. If you feel the chemistry going, explore a kiss. See what happens when you kiss someone new. Do you burst into tears? That's valid. Or do you get aroused? That's valid. Or does it leave you numb? You say, I'm too numb to feel things right now. That's valid. Whatever your reaction is, it's valid. Just be honest with yourself and with anyone that you're exploring with. It's a very good idea, I think, to say to someone after, it gets to the point where it might go farther, I am very attracted to you. I enjoy kissing you. I honestly don't know how I would be if we tried to take it further. Could we just take it one step at a time? Could we try just lying down together and holding each other and maybe moving against each other without taking our clothes off yet? Or could I'd love to be touched, but that's it. Could we try that? Or I'd like to experience what it's like to give you pleasure without assuming reciprocation. Could we try that? Be really clear and give feedback. And if someone isn't willing to understand your fragility, and respect it, and respect the boundaries you'll put along the way. Can we just do this and no more tonight? And then talk about whether we want to take it somewhere else next time. If someone can't respect that or is annoyed by it or is feeling, oh, come on already, it's either yes or a no, then it's a no. That's
Yes.
easy.
Yeah.
It's a no.
And it's a maybe move on.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I'm getting closer to knowing what I want. I'm
Yes.
just not there with knowing whom I want.
Yes, exactly. I love the freedom that you're giving seniors through everything you're saying. It just feels to me that, whatever you guys want to do out there, you can. Like, do you. I just
That's
love
right.
that. Just do you, right?
That's right.
I just wonder if you could just give us some last tidbits on anything anything that you want to share with our viewers and listeners, because this is definitely going to be going on our YouTube channel, Emily, for sure. Because
Ah.
with all those beautiful books in the background
Yes.
and
Oh,
your
oh, I should
beautiful
have taken my
clitoris.
glasses off for this
Oh no,
then.
you look sexy no matter what, on or off. Don't
I'll
worry.
leave them off for the last part. I thought we were only recording audio, but
Yeah.
that's
Oh
all
no,
right.
I just think that the colors behind you and the colors from your voice, they have to see your expression. No, this is going on YouTube for
Oh, thank
sure.
you. Um, Last advice, yes.
Last advice.
Your sexuality is your birthright. You can have the kind of sex you want with the kind of people you want. It is up to you to figure out what that is, what that looks like, how you, what you want. And it's most important to educate yourself about how your body changes, how sex will change for you, to get all the information you can, to make friends with your doctor if you have medical issues, and who doesn't? We're on medications that may interfere with sexuality. We have medical conditions that can interfere with sexuality. So get all the information you can and go for what you want.
And if you do have stuff that gets in the way of sexuality, you can still have fun and play and have sex, because sex isn't all about penetration. Remember that, folks.
That's absolutely right. And I
Yeah.
have another webinar, Great Sex Without Penetration.
There, yay. I love that. I love that. That's so great. Please do go to joanprice.com. She has amazing books and amazing webinars. I did go there and everything's really simple. If you
Thank
think
you.
this website is going to be easy peasy for you to navigate through, and just go ahead and push that button and do get that webinar, because education is what it's all about.
Yeah,
And you'll feel her love. She just loves seniors and wants to
I
share.
do.
Yeah, she just wants to share what she's studied all of these years, and she wants the best life for you. And I want that for you too. And so does Emily, right, Em?
Of course. Like I said, I feel like so much of this, like everybody should go, not just
Yes.
seniors, everybody go check out Joan's website, because honestly, so much of it, I think is applicable to, I think a lot of people can learn a lot,
Well,
people of all
Emily,
ages.
one of the workshops that I've developed is called What I Wish I'd Known About Sex and Relationships When I Was Your Age. And it's specifically for younger people.
Oh, that's
And,
great.
and so for people who think, as you do, and you're right, well, shouldn't we be learning this early? Wouldn't that be handy? Wouldn't that improve our relationships right now? It would. And I would love to talk to whatever venues might welcome me, virtually for now and in person later.
Oh, that's
Awesome. Well, you
great.
did a great job, Joan. Thank you so much for coming to the Passion Perspective to share your knowledge and your experience and your books and all of the info that you've given us is going to be so useful for our listeners of all ages.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. We love you.
Been a pleasure.
Thanks, Joan.
Love you
Bye-bye.
more.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. We are the Passion Perspective. I'm Emily.
And I'm MC Tovette.
And if you have any questions, concerns, you can reach us at thepassionperspective@gmail.com.
And you can find me at relationshipbliss.ca. My Facebook page is Relationship Bliss. And the honeymoon playbook is available on Amazon.com.
Thanks, everyone.
Mwah.